My colleague Ari Melber, host of The Beat, you know, that reference was clearly to Whitey Bulger, who was known as an informant. It was sent, I always thought it was very suspiciously sent to the wrong place, and he was killed within hours by the prisoners.
Beaten to death, dramatically, yeah.
So what do you think about the threat here? How clear is this? I referred to it as witness tampering because you're telling a guy you're afraid is going to testify against you in Congress. You threaten the family member. You threaten the father-in-law. It is like Johnny Five Angels and The Godfather, the Fantangelo, and bringing the brother in from Sicily because you're going to kill him if the guy testifies.
Well, Chris, the Fantangelo analogy is one that Lanny Davis made on MSNBC late today as you were coming on air, and it was striking. And I pressed him on it. I said, wait, if you're citing that scene in The Godfather 2, which of course has the congressional hearing, and they bring in the family member, the brother, are you saying you're worried about violence? And Davis then said yes. He brought up Charlottesville and said that even if Donald Trump himself isn't ordering violence, he is trying to foment it among people who may ultimately lash out. And he says he's with Michael Cohen tonight. They're here in Midtown Manhattan, and he says they fear for the safety. So it's dead serious. And then the congressional side is the chairs of these committees in the House have warned the president. They view it, Chris, as potentially criminal tampering.
What more do you think Cohen has that he hasn't given up already to Mueller and the New York prosecutors? What's Trump worried about that he hasn't given up yet? It seems to me he's given a hell of a lot up to get his sentence reduced so much.
I think you're asking the big question. If Mueller has all the key stuff, and he did say in his filings that Cohen was credible and helpful to, quote, core issues, well, that sounds like the core stuff that Mueller's there to investigate, election tampering and obstruction. Then what else is there? Well, there is the way Donald Trump acts and the way that his company runs for going back years, even in matters that may not be chargeable. Obviously, Donald Trump thinks that Cohen will say something that could hurt him. That doesn't mean it's true. You have someone who has, of course, confessed to misleading Congress before. The president's defenders have a point there. But at a minimum, I don't think any rational person can debate the fact that Donald Trump looks shook, looks scared, is doing incredibly incriminating, embarrassing things on air, as you just showed, to try to delay or prevent this testimony. So that means that Cohen's got something. If you're asking me, do I know what it is tonight? I don't.
Well, on your show last night, you had quite a collection of witnesses from the Russian probe. My God, you asked them whether Cohen should step up and testify. Let's listen to your panel's reaction.
Do you think, in your opinion, that he should step up and speak to Congress before he goes to jail?
I really don't have any opinion on it.
I think he should. I really couldn't care less. I'd like him to go to jail as soon as possible and stay there a long time.
The more openness, the better.
You know, Ari, I thought I was watching The Insider there with the tobacco industry executives all testifying. 4 white guys all saying, well, blah, blah,
Were you
blah,
waiting
blah.
for the hands to go up?
Yes, I was. They were not the cooperating witnesses. But what do you think this guy's going to do? He, as we said, it's the Godfather reference again. An offer he can't refuse. He's going to be he'll be held in contempt if he doesn't show up. And can he use the fifth when he gets up there before the Senate Intel Committee? Can he take the fifth?
So 2 things. He can take the fifth less than the average person because he's already done the self-incrimination on certain matters and confessed. So he has less of that argument unless he's asked about things that he would say are outside of the plea deal and the confession that he made. So the short answer, and believe me, lawyers would debate this, so it could go to court, but the short answer is he has less Fifth Amendment protections than the average person. The second point, Chris, that goes to what you've been pointing out here in your broadcast tonight and why it is just so chilling, this is an unusual situation. You have a longtime loyal defender of the president and attorney to the president who is scheduled to go to prison, who said he would now testify and come clean, who then backed down because of the threats you just reported on and outlined, and now a clash where the Congress says, guess what, buddy? It may not be your call. That's why it's so big that the Democrats have subpoena power and the senators on the Republican side going after him as well. And so the question then becomes about the deadline, Chris. Rarely do you have a subpoena fight with an incarceration deadline. So we're all going to be watching the next couple weeks. Okay. Does Lanny Davis and Cohen, do they try to delay it out past his reporting date to prison?
Let's go into the belly of the beast here. This guy is not like John Dean. John Dean was not Richard Nixon's confidant. This is Chuck Colson. This is the real fixer. This is like Valachi. giving you the design of the structure of the capos and the mob and how it all works together. This is the guy that knows all, because he's the guy Trump called in the middle of the night with girl trouble, women trouble, all kinds of stuff. Whenever he had a really dirty problem, he would call Michael Cohen and say, what do we do about this? We got to pay somebody. We got to scare somebody. He knows it all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what scares Trump? Because Trump may not even remember how much he's confided in this guy.
I think that's a very reasonable inference. And we have to remember the way that Donald Trump works. There are people out there who think Donald Trump is dumb or out to lunch. Not when it comes to his personal interests, his problems, and his money. He may be hands off all sorts of parts of the job of the presidency. 37% of presidential appointees are vacant 2 years in because he won't appoint them. He won't do the work. But boy, as you just said, when it came to accusations, gag orders, silence agreements, Trump org, hush money, National Enquirer, threatening reporters, I could go on. We don't have enough time on cable news for it, and we have a lot of time, Chris. It's a long list, and so I think you're putting your finger on it. What is it that Donald Trump knows that Michael Cohen either can say truthfully or say credibly? Because I don't think Cohen just saying words and making them up with no evidence and no storyline and no corroboration is going to move anyone. I think it's that Donald Trump worries about, as you say, all the problems that Michael Cohen was called to fix. Because, again, one thing you got to remember about Donald Trump, this is a guy who would have hush money payments, make people sign the deal, and then he wouldn't sign it himself. That's how secretive he was.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.